It was back in the Kawaki arc when Boro dared to toss around Boruto, only to face Momoshiki's ruthless wrath in return. The Otsutsuki will not allow anyone to mess with his vessel, and that's a promise that he made in chapter 72. And exactly 30 chapters later, Boruto is now stuck in a no way out situation against Jura, where he seems to have chosen death as a final option. So will Momoshiki make his first time skip appearance to destroy this life-threatening entity? More importantly, will Jura unlock his memories from the time when he was 10 days after meeting the Otsutsuki? Well, there are a number of reasons the Momoshiki takeover possibility outweighs the Kawaki emergence one. First off, because Boruto has been put in a situation where his chances of survival are absolutely zero, even though he offered Kawaki a collaboration to get rid of Jura in return of giving him some huge intel on why he is weak. But even if somehow Kawaki manages to get more stronger, likely after Amado unlocks his true potential, he literally has no idea about the battle which is happening in the land of Wind right now. Now until and unless he's informed about this fight from Shikamaru or Aida, he won't be able to get there in time. And there's another complication involved, which is Akebi, whom he needs to observe for Otsutsuki traits once she is revived. Now, unless the new form grants him some strong sensory powers to trace Boruto or even Jura, which is highly unlikely based on how Ishiki struggled to find him back in the day, then there is literally no way for him to reach there, which leaves us with the only possibility to defeat Jura, and that is Momoshiki taking control of Boruto's body. Now, in order for him to appear and take over the vessel, some serious criteria needs to be met. First off, Boruto should be in a tight do-or-die situation, but unlike the last time where Jura hit him with his Biju bomb laser, which made him fell unconscious, there must be another small criteria which needs to be checked, and that is the presence of the Karma seal. It has only been a single time when Boruto was seen with this seal, and that was the 9th chapter. It happened as an outcome of Kawaki activating his own Karma, which resonated with Boruto like a Bluetooth device, and this led to a strong sense of fear rushing through his face, as if he knew that Momoshiki will appear soon after this. While Koji hasn't confirmed to see any visions of the Otsutsuki, but he also asked Boruto to escape as soon as possible to prevent things from going worse. Later it was revealed that Momoshiki's last takeover on Boruto was really horrible, and that's what made him develop a karma fear. But as they say, beyond fear lies freedom, so if Boruto wants to increase his chances of defeating Jura, then he has no choice but to resort to the karma seal. But how am I so sure that it would take exactly one whole chapter for Boruto to get so beaten that Momoshiki would be forced to emerge as his savior? Sure, it would be a good cliffhanger, but what evidence do we have to deduce that it will take us one whole chapter to see him emerge? Well, what if I told you we have over 5 whole chapters from the first part of the series to back up this possibility? First off, it was chapter 43 called Manifestation, where Momoshiki took over the vessel for the very first time. After taking some overpowered punches from Boro, Boruto went completely unconscious, and what followed was the manifestation of Momoshiki, who not only gave the cyborg a tough beating, but also created a giant Rasengan after using the chakra that he absorbed from Naruto. Well, keep this small detail of the torn sleeve in mind, as it's about to unveil a huge time skip mystery to us later in the video. Similarly, in chapter 54, Momoshiki again took over the body of Boruto once he fell unconscious after fighting Ishiki. Then we had chapter 65, which was the first time for the Otsutsuki to appear as a side effect of using the Karma seal. Boruto can be shown having a heart attack here, and just as expected, the pills of Amado had failed, and Momoshiki was again successful to take control. The following chapter got the vessel killed by Kawaki, since him remaining alive would have costed the life of Naruto. But just another chapter later, we saw Boruto go through an unexpected evolution into a pure Otsutsuki being, thanks to Momoshiki, who saved his organs from depleting. However, this wasn't that good of a news at all, as there was still a chance for Momoshiki to take control. The only real advantage was that he won't be able to resurrect, but that wouldn't stop him from seizing control of the vessel whenever the opportunity arises. And that's exactly what happened in chapter 78, when Boruto depleted his chakra after using the Karma, giving Momoshiki a chance to seize his consciousness for a moment. Even though this time it was momentarily, the Otsutsuki helped Kawaki in escaping, which is what led to the biggest twist of the story. So coming back to the Jura battle, we now have two main criteria for Momoshiki's most awaited emergence. First off, Boruto must use the Karma seal, and second, he must get really exhausted, which would deplete all his chakra to the point where Momoshiki could easily take him over. And looking at how Jura is supposed to kill Boruto in this fight, I don't think it's going to be a one-hit kill type of scenario. Last chapter, Boruto really disrespected the Shinju and neglected his opinions, so he would for sure get beaten for that by Jura, who would assert his dominance in that way. It may be similar to the time time when Boro wrestled Boruto, which forced Momoshiki to come out. And before we went on to what would happen after he actually appears to fight on behalf of Boruto, let's take a look at some important reveal which was recently made by Kimoto about the otsutsuki. He confirmed that Momoshiki's future sight is not the same as prescience. In fact, it's not even considered a shinjutsu. The fact that Momoshiki's future sight was weak kinda explains why all his predictions and prophecies failed miserably. Maybe he was just trying to imitate the power of prescience, which is how he got his hands on his own future sight. But anyway, there's still a chance that even though his personal ability was weak, he could have still been able to see a fragment of future that Kashin Koji couldn't catch with his own ability, and that would only have been possible by training within the consciousness of Boruto to improve his future sight as much as possible. One of the reasons I believe this to be the case is because there must be a reason for this ability of Momoshiki to not be a shinjutsu, especially after it was revealed that he has the knowledge of every shinjutsu in existence. The only explanation that I could come up with is that Momoshiki has been trying to iterate the divine techniques, which is how he forms their weaker variants, which are not potent enough to be called a divine art. So his power to stop time could also be considered as one of his personal ability, and there may be some real shinjutsu, which deals with time, that he's trying to imitate with this technique. You can check out my last video to find out more about this, and subscribe to see a sequel where I connect more dots on this time theory. Anyway, it would be remarkable for Momoshiki to see a point in future with this inferior ability. It could be an event which would save Boruto's life, something that even Kashin Koji couldn't catch with his power of prescience. So now that we know why it's so important for him to emerge again as Jura, let's now get to the main question. What would be the aftermath of his fateful takeover? Well, my theory is that Jura will face his end by getting hit with a giant Rasengan from Momoshiki. The reason for me to believe this comes from the torn sleeve of Boruto from the timeskip, which looks exactly same from the time when Momoshiki took over against Boro to use the giant Rasengan. He would definitely be using this technique again to get rid of Jura this time, and some people even think that this wound on his face is the same one from the flash forward scene. Well, this would also mean that the Kawaki fight would happen a while after Momoshiki defeats Jura, judging by these hard to ignore details, but all of it leads to one huge question: can Momoshiki actually defeat the Shinju as Boruto? Well, the answer can be found in one of his personal abilities, I believe. Just like how he created his own power of future sight with his knowledge of the prescience that he could have hypothetically improved in this time skip period, there is another ability that we have seen him use passively, but looking at the situation at hand, he could be using it offensively this time, and that is the power of time stoppage, an ability which could instantly get rid of Jura, and that's something that even Kashin Koji would have failed to foresee for obvious reasons. Shortly after his appearance from chapter 67, Aida revealed that she couldn't see the conversation between him and Boruto, as it apparently took place in some spiritual plane. While this assumption of Aida may be half correct, what if it's more than just an illusion and Momoshiki actually has a personal power which deals with stopping the flow of time? Well, if that's the case, then he may have learned to improve it by a huge margin in these 3 years, which only means one thing: there is a good amount of chance for him to take over Boruto when he's on the verge of death, just to stop time momentarily and charge for the giant Rasengan in this so-called spiritual plane. And just when he lands the blow on Jura after bringing back the flow of time, the Shinju would be too helpless to move and would get his whole body destroyed. So by pausing time, he could position Boruto's body to deliver a point-blank giant Rasengan amplified by the otsutsuki chakra directly to Jura's core. The Rasengan's destructive potential combined with the element of surprise from time stoppage would ensure the defeat of Jura before he could react or regenerate. The evidence comes from the Hijari battle, where Boruto used the Uzuhiko to drive him to the verge of death, making it clear that the Shinju are vulnerable to massive concentrated attacks. So Jura dying from a massive variant of this ability straight from Momoshiki himself could be how his story will come to an end. Now, as for why I think this may be the best scenario, is because it will not only highlight the flaw of Koji's prescience ability, which is the incompetence to look into different spiritual planes created by Otsutsukis, meaning it was obviously impossible for him to look into such a future where Jura would die in a mysterious and unsolved way, and this also explains why he could not predict the return of Momoshiki with prescience, since his very first comeback in the story would happen in a plane which is beyond his scope of reality. Now, as for why I think it's time for Jura to get off the plot as soon as possible, is because it's now the perfect time for Kawaki's most awaited development in the story. We are about to get a new volume cover this month, and looking at all the recent events, it's definitely going to be Sarada, which could mean that the character on the next cover must be the MVP of that volume, and assuming Momoshiki finishes off Jura in a chapter or two, the person who would be the central focus after that is none other than Kawaki. This is because he's absolutely going to be the next major villain once we are done with Jura. And looking at the wound on Boruto's face being similar to the one shown in the flash forward, we could definitely be on the right track with this theory. Kawaki's character development could start right after he revives Akebi and gets the full access of his suppressed powers. Another reason for why he might not appear at Boruto's rescue or witness the takeover of Momoshiki by his own eyes is because he gets a bit surprised to see his counterpart using the Kama in the future. It shouldn't have been possible for Boruto to control the Kama in the eyes of Kawaki, but since he has been using it without fear in the future fight, only signifies that there will be a breakthrough where he would be using this seal without the fear of getting possessed. Or what if I told you the real reason may be something entirely different? We know if Kawaki doesn't appear on the battlefield, he would never be able to see Boruto using the Kama. This means the flash forward was the very first time when he saw him use the Kama at will after the 9th chapter. And as for why it has already spread on the hand, it could be an outcome of Kama resonance since Kawaki had it active the entire time. So what if he's a threat as big as Jura, and that may be why Boruto was forced to use the seal again? This provides us a better idea on why he was surprised to see Boruto activating the Kama. He never saw him use and control it at will before, which may have triggered the possibility of Momoshiki's emergence in his mind as well. But if that's the case, then why did he propose the idea to seal him instead of killing him altogether? Well, the answer can be found in the anime sequence where Toneri fought Urashiki. Instead of killing the moon Otsutsuki, Urashiki used the Dragon Palace seal to freeze him in time. He even tells him that the Otsutsukis don't have the permission to kill another member. And looking at how Kawaki wants to do the same thing with Boruto in the future, it could be that he's now following the rules of this clan, as he's now alienating from the ninja world just to find enlightenment in the celestial system. So for those who may have forgotten, the Otsutsuki clan actually has some hierarchies, which means there should be some specified systems which govern the workings of their clan. So even though it's just a hypothesis, what if Kawaki killing Boruto would have consequences that somebody alerted him about? It could even be that it's more easier to seal him than to kill him, based on the failed attempt of Kawaki to seal him back in chapter 78. But if he put some emphasis on the first theory, the only person who could explain him the rules and obligation of the Otsutsuki is none other than Amado. First off, because he knows too much about the clan and its members, and even his technology resembles them. So what would be the need of him telling all this to Kawaki? Well, it may be because of Akebi. As we know, Kawaki wants to kill her if she turns into an Otsutsuki, and Amado has warned him from doing that, as he's ready to fight him with all his power if he goes that far. But looking at the scene from the first episode, Kawaki is still alive and looks more powerful than before, which means he likely did not kill Akebi, otherwise Amado would have done something to him. So maybe the scientist just gave him some in-depth Otsutsuki lore, which is why he spared Boruto as well as Akebi. You can check out more such theories in these videos. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.